Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm excited to have Sharon Maidenberg on as a guest. Sharon is the executive director of the Ernest and Sarah Butler, executive director and CEO of the Contemporary Austin, and it is one of the top art institutions in the United States. And they have a fantastic event that they host every fall. And it's really, it's been so successful, they've made a weekend out of it. It will start with an art dinner, which is on the grounds of the beautiful Laguna Gloria, followed by more of a family event the next day called Very Rary. So we're excited to have Sharon on here to talk. And Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So, let's talk a little bit about the Contemporary Austin. So can you talk a little bit about what the mission of the organization is?
I can, and I'd be thrilled to. Our overall mission is really about inviting audiences to discover contemporary art in settings that provoke thought and joy. So we've got a suite of programs that bring art and place together in the pursuit of a deeper exchange and conversation and building closer community.
That's fantastic. So, talk a little bit about, because I know you kind of moved here during the pandemic. So, talk a little bit about how you got involved with the Contemporary and kind of, the process of really kind of having to network at a time where you really weren't able to kind of do a lot of those things in person.
Yeah, I have just celebrated officially 3 years here at the Contemporary and in Austin. So when I reflect back on my first months here, it was not an easy time. My family and I moved here from the Bay Area in the late summer of 2020. So you'll remember that Austin was in stage 5 lockdown. I had been supervising the pandemic response from afar. And, the museum was shut down, of course. And so it was not an easy thing to navigate. But I will say, just by way of my background, I'm a lifelong nonprofit person, and my entire career has been dedicated to bringing contemporary art to the community and to the cities in which I've lived from day one. So that's a very big part of my personal belief system and ethos. And when I was offered the role here in Austin, I thought, what an amazing opportunity to be part of what I thought of as the premier contemporary art organization for Austin. During a time of interesting growth and change. And of course, that was just before the pandemic landed. But of course, now in 2023, looking forward, Austin is in such a unique and exciting moment of its development, evolution, trajectory. And I really firmly believe that the contemporary arts and artists are such a key part of healthy, happy civic societies. And so just a really exciting time to be here. I did land a bit fish out of water, didn't know many people, didn't really know much about the arts ecosystem here, had been in the San Francisco Bay Area arts ecosystem for over 20 years at that time. And so I really did take the approach of coming in with curiosity and an interest in really listening and learning and understanding what people had loved about the organization prior, and what they saw as the potential opportunities for the organization moving forward. And so really kind of took my time taking it in, absorbing, listening, understanding, creating some sort of hypotheses, as I would call them, about what was possible, and then really having no choice but to weather the crisis mode of the pandemic and what I would call sort of doing the triage of that moment, really thinking about the wellness of the staff and our facilities being very much in response mode to the urgent needs of that moment. And then seeing the, again, kind of potential. There seemed like there was so much pent up energy around art and making and creativity and spending time outdoors. So we opened the grounds at Laguna Gloria, our beautiful sculpture park, first. That felt like a very safe and approachable way to reopen. And then slowly reopening the rest of the organization. But it's really just been a very interesting, I guess I would say, thought-provoking time to be at the helm of an arts organization. And again, a city that's changing so much right now.
I want to, I'm glad you ended with, the city changing and morphing. And I kind of want to actually ask you a little bit about, you were involved and entrenched in one community for a really long period of time. What made you say yes and to make a move after, that's a substantial period of time. So what was it about, the contemporary Austin that really said, I have to do this and I have to make that move?
It's a good question. I would say the choice was both professional and personal. I saw a tremendous opportunity around the contemporary. For those who are listening and don't know the history, the organization is both young and old, as I like to think about it. It had previous iterations as other organizations, and then most recently, an organization named Art House and an organization named the Austin Museum of Art merged now about 10 years ago. And so both of those organizations had tremendous history and really stellar programs and a lot of support around them, but they were very, very different. And when the Contemporary was created, it really did a tremendous job of bringing a lot of incredible art and artists to Austin. But I also saw a lot of opportunity to really build and grow on that history and take it to the next level. So I'm someone who really likes a challenge. I'm someone who likes to really leave my mark on something. And I'm also someone who loves to work with what's already there and help it kind of grow. And so all of those things really spoke to me as someone who had been an executive director at my previous organization for almost 12 years. My time there had started to feel like I had done all the good work I could do, and I wanted to take on my next kind of challenge. And then on the personal front, I had always heard about how incredible Austin was. I hadn't spent a ton of time here, but the time I had spent here was incredibly hospitable and warm and creative. And it felt like there was just an enthusiasm for trying new things here that really seemed like, again, it kind of mirrored that potential that I look for in any opportunity. So yeah, it was kind of a crescendo of timing and opportunity, and something that felt like there was just a sort of spirit of potential around it.
That's great. And I love how you explain that, and just, I love that you bet on yourself and you took the risk. You realized that you had done all you had achieved after a really long period of time at another organization, and went forward and boldly did that, in the middle of a pandemic, when, and you did it in 2020. That a lot of people were moving around in 2021, but in 2020, people were kind of anchored. So, I'd love to know, after, coming to the San Francisco market, which I'm sure has a very different personality from the Austin market, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to engage and fundraise in a new city?
It's a great question. And to be honest, I'm still finding my way, having been here 3 years, more than half of that time period during a very awkward kind of wonky time. I would say my primary belief is that fundraising is a long game. It's about relationships. It's about building trust and alignment around values. And so, we will take all forms of fundraising. I think, I know we'll talk a little bit more about Art Dinner and Very Rary. Events are such a wonderful way of bringing people together around a shared mission or a vision or a value. At the end of the day, though, they are tools. They're specific mechanisms within a much larger operation of fundraising. So I always tell people to, number one, I encourage people to give to something. When I meet people all out and about, I will always tell them, you don't have to give to the organization I'm a part of, but give to something you care about. I really do believe that we are all part of a bigger sort of ecosystem, and every one of us has the capacity to be generous in whatever size gift that means to you. That's something that we really talk a lot about in our family. It's something I try to instill in my child. I just think that we are all in a position to give something that will make a difference to something. So that's kind of an ethos that's personal for me. And also when I talk about philanthropy, I always encourage people to really think about what's a stretch in their own life. And again, the size of the gift really depends, of course, on one's capacity and socioeconomic bracket, but everyone can do something that's meaningful for them. I encourage people to really lean into what they're passionate about and what really speaks to them as the space of impact that they're looking to have. The arts, of course, are my selected component of the philanthropic sector. I think sometimes within the arts, people think of it as a luxury or a nice to have. There are, of course, so many things that warrant and are deserving of people's generosity. But I'm a firm believer that the arts are not optional in a healthy society, that they're critical. And that has been sort of my choice of area of focus. And I really believe that the arts can transform people's lives and are incredibly significant to an evolving, growing city. So I will go to the mats for the evolution and support of cultural institutions. I think, just back to your point about Austin, it's at such an interesting moment in its own growth and trajectory right now. And I really believe that the people who call it home, even partially, should really be thinking about investing in its larger institutions as the city evolves and grows. I think historically, Austin was pretty rooted in the university. And, that's no longer the case. So now, as a city that has a tremendous amount of nonprofits here, I believe that individuals have to be part of the solution to sustaining the kind of city that they want to be living in. And they obviously want to be living here because they chose to come here.
Absolutely. And I love how, you talked about, the arts is really something I can tell you're really passionate about. Where did that passion originate and come from, that you were like, I'm going to make my life out of really being an advocate for this medium, when there's so many other, not just nonprofit mediums, but even artistic mediums? What about contemporary art and art in general really drives your passion?
Yeah, I love that question. And forgive me because I can nerd out about this a little bit. So I'm gonna, I'll try to keep it pithy. My personal belief is that artists, contemporary art, really functions as a reflection of the times in which we live. And so I think of seeing art or experiencing art, whatever medium it is, that's produced by current makers, sort of like reading the newspaper. I think of it as a form of storytelling, truth telling, empathy building. So for me, I learn a lot about other people's experiences by engaging with the art that they produce, whether it's, the written word, performed, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, film, video based work. I think the fact that artists are making work today in response to their lived experience is a way for us to really connect as a human kind of condition. And that for me is just a really, really powerful component of civilization. Time comes and goes, but the artifacts that people leave behind is the residue of their experience in the world. And that's, to me, a really powerful way for people to connect and feel part of something bigger, perhaps. So anyway, I can talk for a long time about the importance of art and artists. And I really do believe that it is one of the most essential components of a well-heeled society.
It is. And I love how you explained how it is kind of reflective of a time and a frame. And really, all art at one point or another is contemporary, in that definition. Anything in the late 1800s with whatever artists were really popular in that era, that was contemporary for its time. So I love how you talk about how it really is a reflection. It's almost like looking at certain aspects of you in a mirror, or certain aspects of society in a mirror. And I'd never heard it explained that way before, but that makes absolute and total sense. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And, while we're on the subject of art, we're here to talk about, the upcoming art dinner. And it is really, it's one of those very few evenings, if you're fortunate enough to ever experienced it. It is, we're going to start by talking about one reason why it's magical. And to me is that it's held al fresco on the grounds of Laguna Gloria, which is it's anyone who hasn't been to it, it is a hidden gem. You will not believe it is 5 or 10 minutes from downtown, from the 10th largest city in the United States. I can't believe I'm saying that now. So it really is a magical place. So talk about what's a piece of advice, talk about, holding a dinner al fresco, and a piece of advice you would give to someone looking to do that, hold a gala or signature event outdoors.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's so many logistics around holding a large outdoor event. And, it is one of the things we are all succumbing to, is the reality of weather and the elements. We are very intentional around targeting the late fall here, which is such a beautiful time of year to be outside. The grounds of Laguna Gloria could not be more spectacular at the end of October. But of course, you always have to be a little anxious about rain and have contingency plans in place. And depending on your risk tolerance, what we've done in past is either have a rain plan for the actual outdoor event, or gone as far as having a contingency plan where we'll have a backup indoor venue secured in the case we actually need to pivot. That said, that is my absolute last option on the list. There's something, as you say, so spectacular about doing this event on the grounds of Laguna Gloria, under the big, beautiful sky, right on the lake. And it's just such a spectacular event. I think our creativity and our artfulness are felt throughout every nuance of that event. It's really something that we try to weave into every component of how that event is planned, organized from the beginning, from the, save the date, all the way through the graphics, the collateral, the look and feel. One thing we're very proud of is that the event is sort of rebirthed every year to really wow and surprise and delight our guests at the event. So no art dinner has ever looked or felt the same, even though the consistent thread, of course, is that it is outside on the grounds of Laguna. Everything else about it really does get reimagined year to year, so that we will continue to bring that sense of delight and wonder and surprise elements. And last year's art dinner was just absolutely spectacular in its visual look and feel. This year promises to be the same, but very, very different than it was last year.
And one thing, there's always two ways that I am never surprised when I'm fortunate enough to go to this. And that one is that it is the one of the very few events I go to in Texas where I can honestly say I am never surprised to see a person there. I may have never seen a person before, because sometimes you'll go to something and be like, I never knew this person would have done that. But there's just something about that space where anyone that comes in, it's like, yeah, I can see that. But I'm always wowed at the range of people that you have. And second, the one thing I felt last year was really magical was you had it in a different space on the grounds than you had ever had it before. And it really allowed, and anyone who's ever been to Laguna Gloria, it's a multi-tiered outdoor space. So it was kind of, you had to go down a thing of stairs and a band led everyone down there. Like, you really made a moment out of something that hadn't been done before, so that everyone paid attention. And you felt that collective communal love, when the band played and everyone kind of followed them on the way down.
Well, it was, thank you. It was very intentional. And again, every element of the event itself is so carefully thought of. We want intentionality to be felt throughout the whole event, and artfulness, infusing artists, performers, live music into every event we do, not necessarily purely as kind of quote unquote entertainment, but actually as an experiential component of the event. So having a live, very large scale marching band take you down through the grounds was very much designed to be kind of an epic moment. The other thing last year that was spectacular was we were inaugurating a new ramp for the ground. So accessibility is something that I'm very passionate about, and we had just built a new ramp that could, for the first time ever, take someone who's in a wheelchair or requires a stroller or other forms of special needs to get down to the lower grounds, which is where the lake is, of course. So we were very proud to highlight that element, which is part of why we took people down for the first time.
It was really fun. It really was a magical journey to get down there. And, you talked about, obviously one big thing about the art dinner is obviously the spectacular art that you have. One thing that I really appreciate about you, and I'm not really aware of any other organization in Texas that does do it. If I'm wrong, I apologize out there, but the Contemporary is the only one I know that really does it and makes it known, is that you donate a portion of the proceeds from the live auction go directly back to the artists themselves. And that's really a great form of innovation that really, it allows things to continue to be next level for you all. How does that?
No, thanks for mentioning that.
Absolutely. So how does that help facilitate goodwill between the artist and the donors and the Contemporary?
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. I think fundraising, again, it's a long game, and it takes a lot of different people with different roles to play in order to reach our goals. And, most obviously, as the Contemporary Austin, we are here to support artists. And that's something that we care very deeply about, treating the artists that we work with fairly, making sure artists get compensated for their labor. That's something that's very important to us. And, probably a bit more pragmatically, to continue to run this event year over year, to continue to really attract top-notch museum quality artists to participate and have their work part of our auction. They have to be both incentivized and acknowledged for their generosity. And so giving a percentage of the sale back is actually a win-win-win. The artists feel seen and acknowledged and valued. They're making some income on any of the sales that happen. The galleries are more likely to want to participate because they understand that we are not asking the artist to take a financial hit by participating. The collectors in the room understand the importance of making sure that the artists are being compensated. And while the contemporary in the immediate might make a little bit less money than it would had it not given that percentage back, we will benefit in the long run from having more artists, more gallerists, more collectors feel good about this event and feel good about how their dollars are being put back into the pockets of artists directly.
That's really great. I want to delve a little bit more into the auction and, the auction this year specifically. One thing that you all have always done really well is you start with a preview party, but two, and this has really gotten in the focus for people coming out of COVID. You partner with Artsy and you've got, the online component with that. So can you talk a little bit about, maybe previewing a couple of the artists that may be on display this year, along with, how over the last few years, how an auction is done has changed and shifted?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for better or for worse, I have been running nonprofit auctions for longer than I'd like to admit here today. So I have a lot of experience with thinking about benefit auctions, specifically in working with artists and their art. And what we've really done is refined a model here where through Artsy, which is an amazing partnership for us, we are able to sell work directly to folks far beyond those who are able to attend the gala. So anyone who clicks through can bid, and that bidding window is open for about 2 weeks before the actual art dinner event itself. And so trying to really build momentum, but also access and broaden the collector base. Anyone who is interested in the work is able to go on and start bidding, and then the bidding actually goes through the gala evening itself and then until the following business day, which will be Monday morning. So we have both a live auction and a silent auction, and the live auction, of course, will sell at the night of from the stage with our auctioneer partner from Sotheby's, and they will come and actually run the live auction for us. But the silent works are all available on Artsy until the Monday following. And it's just been a very successful approach to both enabling our visitors and those who want to support a longer window to participate, to view the work. As you mentioned, we have an actual preview. Aside from the online preview, we do have the work installed by our professional art handlers. So the work is pristinely installed like an exhibition or like a museum show. And anyone who'd like to come and view the work and place a bid is welcome to do so at Laguna Gloria the week before the event.
That's really great. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, really thinking through all sides of it around making it both accessible and also very high touch. I think that's the other part of not just auctions and events, but fundraising in general is really thinking through every element of something carefully and thoughtfully and making it as easy as possible for people to support us and frankly, to feel great about their support for us.
Yeah, I love how you explain that. And I want to deep dive into this just a little bit more because you're explaining it just in a very succinct, but also a very accessible way. Can you talk a little bit about, what pieces wind up in a silent auction versus a live auction? Because it's not by dollar amount. And that's always the interesting thing is you'll see silent auction items that some are more expensive than some of the live auction items. So talk a little bit about how, the organization goes about curating, what goes into which auction.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot. And I will say this is a little bit more art than science, or maybe a hybrid of the two. Yeah. And again, my years of doing this for better or for worse, one of the things that really drives how I think about it is what will help each of these works go to the very best home. Some of the works, big named artists, high price point, there's no doubt in my mind that it will find its right home through the silent auction. So it might not need to be on the stage. Whereas conversely, something that's maybe a lower price point by an up and coming artist, and people might need a little more help to understand what they're looking at, even though it's not the most expensive ticket in the room, I might put that in the live so that we can actually engage in a little bit more discussion. The auctioneer has a little bit more time with their audience, and we can actually increase the potential bidding on something by having it go from the stage. Now, I like to always have a element of surprise in the live auction too, something that folks, the kind of sleeper sensation, if you will, something that someone might not have expected in the live auction, but actually get some momentum from the stage. And so it is a little bit of a carefully curated set. I also have a rule for our event in particular about a number of lots that we want to have go from the stage. Nothing is worse than feeling like, oh my God, when's this going to end? You know, I need the auctioneer to stop talking. I just want to talk to my friends. So I'm very mindful of the guest experience. And while we are absolutely there to raise as much money as we can, we're also there to ensure that our donors and supporters are having a wonderful time. And so always a balance, right? We will have, and still finalizing the details because I've still got about 6 weeks here to plan for it. But we'll have approximately 7 items from the live auction on the night of, and then approximately between 15 and 20 in the silent lots, which again will be viewable in the galleries and online. And then folks have the option to bid through the silent auction on Artsy.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, I love how how you've curated that, because some auctions can have lots of pieces. I love that you've got, about 20 to 25 so that it's, people can kind of zero in on one instead of being like, oh my gosh, I want to buy 5. So I really love that that you do that. And, an auction, if anyone's never experienced an art auction, it really is kind of something to behold. There is suspense, there is drama, there's all those things that really makes it kind of really fun to just kind of watch and witness. And, I want to kind of pivot from the art dinner to, what you all do the next day. So believe it or not, people, basically, the gala ends, late evening, sometimes even at midnight, by the time everyone leaves. And the very next day, you all turn around and kind of do a completely different style of an event that appeals to broader aspects of the community. Talk a little bit about this event. It's called Very Rary, and how you're all able to do that turnaround so quickly.
Yeah, we are a little bit nutty. I will admit to that. It is no small lift for the production team and for the staff. And, this is our second year of doing that. So full disclosure, we are still deciding if have we gone completely mad or just partially mad in doing this. However, I will say one of the things that's incredibly special about it is a full weekend of nonstop contemporary extravaganza, as I like to think of it. So as you've indicated, the art dinner is so special and so pristine and frankly, pretty exclusive. It sells out every year. It's really only designed for a certain number of people. And yet the contemporaries offerings are so vast, and there are so many different kind of programs that we offer here. And we really felt like it could be additive to have something that was family friendly and fun and casual and sort of over the top in a playful way. We're already in deep event mode that weekend. We've already got rentals everywhere and tents and, bars set up and all of this. So there's a little bit of an economy of scale in repurposing some of that setup for another event the following day. And also really becoming as welcoming and inclusive as possible. A lot of the folks who will be here on the Saturday night, they've got sitters or they've got pet watchers, or, they're all decked out. And there's something really fun about rolling in the next day with your kiddos or with your pets or with the aunt and uncle or grandma and grandpa, and just relaxing and having, a fun drink, a cocktail, mocktail, whatever your preference, and engaging in art making activities. All of the proceeds from the Very Rary go toward supporting our education offerings, which are really much more robust than I think a lot of people know about. And all of the work we do with school age kids, with educators, teachers, with art teachers, with Title I schools, it's a big, big lift for our team. And we really wanted a way to highlight and promote and bring more awareness to those incredible offerings. And so the Very Rare is really designed to do that. If you come on that Sunday afternoon, you get a little glimpse into what it's like to be a kind of delighted kiddo, looking at art, making art, getting dirty, kind of getting your hands dirty. And we just felt like it was a great compliment to the art dinner.
Absolutely. And, I love that you talked about, the museum's programs, because I think, one thing that I notice is a lot of people will get involved in stuff because their children may be interested in that particular aspect. And with the arts, that's something that a child tends to kind of see through, for year after year after year, and it really becomes a passion for them. So I think it's so smart on your end to really, it allows, people to either get more deeply involved if they have gone to the dinner, like you said, or it may just be people that want to check it out because, a child's friend's parents went and they're going as their add-on. So it really allows for wide-ranging aspects of the community, from Title I to people that may be involved in the next year's art dinner, to really all kind of come together and really get that uniquely eclectic Austin feel.
Yeah, that's right. We have also really had a broad reach. The Very Rary committee is a large group of people who are very committed, like you say, to the idea of the arts playing a deeper role in education, in their children's life, and their family life. We've had a lot of corporate sponsors get enthusiastic about that. So I think there's also the relevance piece. Not everyone who believes in and values the arts is going to necessarily be an art collector. And I think there is space for both and for all. And so really opening it up and creating more entry points for people who might want to support or get involved in an institution that is bringing arts and culture to Austin. My goal as a fundraiser and a leader and a sort of inviter, as I see as part of my larger role, is to create enough entry points where anyone who's interested in getting involved and at any level is welcome to do so in ways that are appropriate for them and their family.
Absolutely. And I love how you explain that, because even like with the art dinner, you've only got 7 items. So it's not like, if you've got, 300 people there, only 7 people are going to walk away with art. So that probably means you want a little bit of people who may not be avid art collectors, but really believe in the museum. One, it gives a little bit more diversity and range in terms of the types of people at the party. But two, it allows it to kind of, it allows it to be good-natured bidding as opposed to 300 deadly serious art collectors all going for 7 items. That may get to be a little much. So I love.
Although
how
I do
you
love
explain
the
that.
competitive energy at a good auction. And my very favorite is when there are bidders on the telephone, and then you've got someone bidding from across the world and someone in the room. And from my point of view, that is the one night where I'm shameless, and we are looking for the biggest dollars we can find. So I'm not above pinning people against each other for that fabulous art item. And I will say we also have a Paddles Up, which, of course, if you're not trying to take home a piece of art, but you do want to support, that's another way for people to have their dollars go directly towards supporting the mission.
That sounds fantastic. And, you've given us such a wealth of knowledge. I want to end with one question. And I think you're the perfect person to ask this, because you do 2 very different events within 24 hours. So bravo. What is one thing all successful events for fundraising have in common?
That is a great one thing. Oh, that's tough. I guess I would say exceed their goal.
I love that answer. And you may have only lived in Texas for 3 years, but that is such an answer a Texan would give. So I love it.
Well, off the cuff, that's the best I got. And I will say, I love events. I love getting people together. I love all of the nuances of it. But you have to know what you're trying to achieve. At the end of the day, this is about fundraising and, raising the dollars we need to fulfill our mission. And so exceeding your goal that night or that day is really one of the best things a good fundraising event can do.
Well, that's fantastic. And Sharon, congratulations in advance. I know it's going to be an absolutely wonderful, wonderful weekend. So, congrats in advance. And, we look forward to seeing and hearing all about it after the fact.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me and inviting me on here. It's been fun to talk with you about it.
Absolutely. And the Contemporary Austin's Art Dinner 2023 will be held on October 28th, 2023, and Very Rary will be held on October 29th, 2023. Both events will be held at Laguna Gloria in Austin, Texas. For more information, please visit thecontemporaryaustin.org. And that will do it for this week's episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.